thing, some particular experience, some particular insight, then we can call it, using the traditional language of the discourses, that means you're practicing in order to go to heaven. So that's what heaven is, isn't it, really? It's a permanently pleasant mental state. So if you're practicing meditation because you think that you can get rid of things that you don't like about yourself or in yourself, and you can enter into this permanently blissful state, that means you want to go to heaven. But enlightenment goes beyond heaven. So there was a kind of an awkward exchange when Ajahn Chah went to England the first time, and he was taken around the local church by the vicar, a very nice man. And so Ajahn Chah said to him, asking him about spiritual practice and prayer to God, and the vicar said, in your meditation, do you reach God? And Ajahn Chah said, oh, we go further than that, he said. So it was quite a challenge for the translator to translate that without being offensive to this very kind vicar who was taking them round. So it's beyond any one particular thing or any particular category. But going back to this same old kind of feeling, and how that is rooted in the sense of self. Another analogy is like the fly in the soup. You have this big pot, big pot of soup, delicious soup, and you get one fly in it, and then usually people throw the whole thing out, isn't it? Because there's one fly. And that one fly in our life is that sense of self. When everything becomes seen through that prism of self, and really recognize how that affects and undermines your happiness, and the ways that we think and the ways that we interpret our experience. So in the Western world, then this phenomenon of guilt is so deep and widespread, and for Asians for a long time find it quite incomprehensible, and Asian teachers certainly. These days people tell me in Bangkok, a lot more people complain of this feeling. But I would point out, this is a kind of a typical experience. Someone decides to do a good thing, a selfless act of kindness, generosity, and spends a lot of time planning it and putting effort into this activity, and then say a few hours into the activity, whatever it might be, there's a thought comes up into the person's mind as, oh, people are just going to praise me so much for this, or this is going to do my image so much good, or something like that. And then the next thought is, yeah, that's what you're really doing, isn't it? Come on, be honest, be real. This is really it. And this is a very poisonous illusion. So you have all these wholesome mental states, one after another for a long time, and then you have an unwholesome mental state, and you decide that that unwholesome mental state is more real than all the wholesome mental states that preceded and succeeded. So why? Why do you give that kind of weight? Why are the unwholesome and the mean kind of thoughts in your mind more real than the good ones? Why do you prioritize those things? Why does that seem to be who you really are? So many people say, oh, if people really knew who I really was, nobody would have anything to do with me. No, it's not true at all. But that's the kind of self-obsessed thought that comes up. So this idea that not only is this attachment to an idea of self already a flying suit, it's already toxic kind of thought, but what makes it even more toxic, even more tragic, is this idea that the self is basically bad, and it's essentially a bad thing. So we come back to how do we deal with that? So some people say, how do you get rid of the ego? And you don't have to do, why would you do that? How could you do that? There's no idea of ego in the Buddha's teaching. What there is something called atuvadupatthana, which means attachment to a concept of self or an idea of self. You don't have to get rid of an ego, because there isn't one in the first place. There isn't a self. There's just an assumption of one. There's just it's a very lazy, instinctual understanding of life and who you are, which is based essentially on lack of awareness, lack of observation, lack of investigation of what's actually going on. So if you begin to meditate, what do you observe? Well, if you have even a small amount of peace in your mind, and the mind is with the breath even for a short period, what happens when you are aware and awake? That sense of being male or being female, it's not present. The sense of being this person with this personal history, with this personality, etc., etc. It's completely absent. So you have, your mind is clear, bright, sharp, and yet so many of the things that you take for granted and you think is who you really are absent at that time. So that, don't worry about not being so peaceful. I mean, just learning from whatever comes out, that's already a really important thing to recognize. So let's say you're meditating for a while, your mind getting a little bit calm, and then what happens is a thought pops up into the mind. So did you make that thought? Was it you who decided to have that thought? No, it just pops up. Where does it come from? Who knows? Why do you think that? Why would you possibly think such a thing? And so, the kinds of things that come in your mind. Where did that come from? And the thing to like you to observe, or at least to see whether you agree with me, is that at that moment that the thought arises in your mind, there is no sense of me, the thinker. That thought comes afterwards. So in everyday life, you have to have an owner before something which is owned. Okay? But in experience, unmediated experience, where you're looking very directly at what's going on, something arises and then you take hold of it. And that sense of me and mine is something that you're creating moment by moment. It's not something that's there, it's something that you add on to experience unnecessarily, and that's the cause of so much of our suffering. And we do it because it's a habit, we've always done it, and we don't have to do it. So you can have experience, not that you suddenly don't take responsibility for your actions or your feelings anymore, but they are seen as conventional truths. So this is another important feature of Buddha's teaching. We say there are two kinds of truth. There's an unmediated truth, that which we can know in the present moment. And there are conventional truths, or what we call agreed truths. And that's not a bad thing, it's a very good thing. All the human progress that allows us to lead our lives in the way that we do these days is due to our ability to create truths, conventions. So money is a convention. If we all agree that this piece of paper or this is worth something, then we can exchange it for goods and services. But in itself, it's not the natural state. If a Martian was to see this or someone, you would know what it was. It is so because we agree it to be so. So there are truths that are known, can be known as direct experience, and there are truths that are created